Teaching. I love teaching. I've always loved it. Both of my parents are teachers in my native Chile, and I love teaching the little ones. I'm a first grade teacher and a fourth grade ESL teacher as well, last year and this year. And as I mentioned, the little ones are my favorite. I have a lot of, I feel so grateful for the teachers who teach the older kids, but the little ones are my favorite. And fourth graders are not too little, so last year and this year, I noticed that my fourth graders, like that age, it's very tricky age. Mood swings, love drama sometimes even. So much going on at this age that I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? So there I was at the beginning of the year, again this year, trying to figure it out with my group of fourth graders. I am a Spanish speaker, so at the beginning of the year, I say most of my students speak Spanish. So as I welcome them with a warm hola, and I introduce myself in Spanish, and they were like, what? Why do you speak Spanish? Yes, I'm a Latina, Muslim, I wear a hijab. Everybody's always confused, like, why do you speak Spanish? It's like the entire world expects me to speak Arabic, which I don't, unfortunately. And here it was, the beginning of the school year, trying to connect with my students. Connection is always important for me. It's the most important thing. I love responsive classroom. I love creating a safe space and community for my students. So that's what I did. As every beginning of the year, we worked together to create our classroom expectations, what we were going to do, how we were going to create that safe environment. I was using those that we created together, but things were not really working out as I expected. I included a social emotional tool that is a stress checker that I used during COVID. It was very challenging, so teaching online, I always try to create those connections as well. So it was a very simple tool. It has colors, very visual, and a very great tool for English learners. So they needed to tell me how they were feeling between 0 and 10, or sharing a color. So I will know how were they doing and what was kind of to dig deeper and what was bothering them or what they needed help with. I was using these tools, but somehow things were not working out. And one day I had to stop my lesson. And there I was giving a pep talk, like a mom, like the same thing I do at home. And all of a sudden I was listening to myself and I was like, oh God, I'm sounding like my mom. I promised to myself I will never do that. What am I doing? But this pep talk was a little bit different. It was from a place of love. I remember my mom telling me, look where you are. Look what you have. Look at all the blessings you have, the opportunities, especially as an immigrant. And I think I try to channel that and to motivate my students. Well, I kept using the stress checker. I didn't know how things were going to go. And almost at the same time, I included this activity in one of my lessons. It was a warm-up activity. It's in the curriculum I'm using. And it was like a free writing. It was write me a note and sharing wherever you want with me. I'm here to listen. And I don't know if consciously or unconsciously, I paired this activity with the stress checker that I just showed. And the results were great, were amazing actually. This is one of the letters that I received. And if you can read, it's a very nice letter with a lot of love. I love you, Missy. This letter really touched my heart. This letter was full in Spanish. They had a choice to write in English as much as they could, and also in Spanish if the idea was for them to write. This letter just really touched my heart. This student, Antonia, she was very shy, sad most of the time. You could see in her face that she was really struggling. And I knew she could speak more and use more English. And as you know, I teach ESL and I teach the newcomers. So I knew that all my newcomers needed English as soon as possible. So for me, encouraging them to find out what was that they needed, it was crucial. So this letter, she just opened and shared a lot of things. After this letter, I use the stress checker in a different way. I knew that some way, a private way or finding a private way to share information was better for them. This is how I use the stress checker now. So they put their heads down, they show me with their hands where they are at. If they are feeling between 0 and 10, they show me with the hands a number, 2, 3, or 4. So I know how they are feeling. For those students who are between 7 or 10, they know they can stay at the end of the class and talk with me if something is going on. Sometimes what I learned is that sometimes what small things, there are small things, like they need translation to express how they feel. And if they go to the nurse, they need translation as well. So I found myself bridging between my students and other people in the school community. This gave me the opportunity to find out more about them, connect with them, but also find the resources they needed in the school so their needs were met and they were focusing in learning. So after doing all this, Antonia not only talked more, she seemed happier, but she also moved to the higher level, a group with higher level students. So her English, she was using her English more, and the other student as well, same both of them. So for me, I guess the idea of this story, sharing this story, is two things. Like one, like creating these deeper connections with our students. Genuine human connections are very important. Our students need mirrors, windows, sliding doors, and many other things that are foundational for their learning. Class expectations, they are working so much better right now. I definitely notice a change on being more respectful, more focused, or if they get a little bit lost in there, they are coming back with a quick, remember, this is learning time, or I'm here if you need me at the end of the class. Sometimes we underestimate small things like this stress checker or sharing a story. At some point, I thought that it was our common cultural background, the language, which was making the change, those shifts in the classroom. And after thinking a lot about it, I think it has something to do with it, but I also think that it's a lot about being genuine, trying to connect with them or connecting with them in a genuine way, appreciating them, showing the love and the love that we all have for our students, sharing my own stories, and that pep talk maybe has had something to do with it as well. Maybe they needed to hear that they are loved and I care about them in that way. So I invite you to also think about stories and being a little bit vulnerable sometimes as well, and share those stories that might be inspirational for our students or can motivate them to do better. Sometimes they see us as that perfect teacher, and we are not that perfect teacher. So I invite you to really think about it. Think about a story. Share those stories that you might think are not going to make a difference, and to create that change. Thank you.